I want to challenge you today and ask you, how are you different? How are you different than any non-Christian friends you have? Do you find that you're generally doing more for the world around you than those people are, those outsiders? Because one of the biggest struggles I have is that I have all these non-Christian friends, and when I compare them to the people I go to church with, they're essentially the same. Besides the idea that my friends might go to strip clubs and watch more porno than most of the people. Besides that, they tend to love each other. They tend to care about each other. They'll be there to protect each other and help each other with any needs they have. It's a pretty kind of cool relationship they all have, and it just makes me think about verses where it talks about, like, who's one who loves his brother. Even the pagans do that. Anybody can love their brother, but why would they get a reward for that? But when you love your enemy, that's what really sets us apart. That's what God does for us ultimately, because when we look at like the Garden of Eden story, you see man trying to rule God, man's trying to be like God. You see the Tower of Babel, you see man trying to build this tower to make themselves on the same level as God. We're trying to elevate ourselves to be like him or be above him ultimately as men and women, and we're his enemies to a certain extent, and he's come down and given us freedom from ourselves and shown us and kind of forgiven of us our sins against him. But I can't see many people loving their enemies in our church. I see people threatened by the poor, threatened by homeless people, saying, well, they need to be like this. They need to fix themselves before we can help them. They need to get all cleaned up. Well, they need to get a job. And they push all these Western values on them, not the kingdom love values where you just go and be with them and love them. That's just one example. You see right now Muammar Gaddafi's going nuts and killing people, and you have the Canadian and the Western forces uniting to bomb these guys, and you just wonder, like, okay, you're supposed to be representing this Christian West, but is that the best way to deal with things? I think we as Christians have to have that same courage as soldiers to go in and fight for those who are being exploited and being treated like garbage and being manipulated or whatever. You can go in and you can make tons of change without going in and start with a gun and shooting people and using your. It's pretty easy to go in with your military might and start bombing the crap out of a poor country and saying you're doing the most loving thing for them, but there's just no way to do war and violence where it's not messy. Ultimately, there's going to be innocent people killed. There's going to be a lot of damage. And it's really a disconnected way of saving people, where we see Christ coming down in himself, walking amongst us and loving us. That's how he dealt with his enemies. And we got to be willing to do the same thing and having that same attitude towards those who are our enemies. It's that love that really is supposed to separate us from the world. In John it says, like, they'll know you are Christians by your love. Like, and I don't know, I think I meet a lot of people who I don't necessarily know are Christians. I do meet those people, which is really cool. When you just talk to them, they don't tell you they're a Christian or anything, but they start telling you what they do with their lives and how they live and what's important to them, and it's these loving acts and taking care of people and doing cool things. And then you just kind of realize, you wonder, oh, I wonder if this guy's a Christian, and ultimately, yeah, they are. And that's what we should really be. That's the gospel. Like, you start seeing these churches, these like big fancy posters and cool like rock shows and music artists and these awesome services where you bring in a lion. I've seen at one church to like wow these people, and it's like a shock and awe campaign in terms of church. But really, the gospel doesn't need to be marketed if it's true and if it's good. It's really that love, and it's that difficult self-sacrificing love that's gonna challenge people to say, wow, this guy's different, this person is about something bigger. And I want to challenge people to be looking at just basic things in their lives, like we take for granted. Walmart is one place I hate so much because they just have this horrendous track record of human rights and labor rights violations around the world. But it's not just Walmart, it's this whole system where we demand the lowest price for our goods. And that seems to be the basis on how we choose where we're going to shop. We say, well, where can I get this for the most for the least? That's a Western value where we just, enough is a swear word almost. We can't say enough to anything. And we got to be looking at things like that. We got to be looking at where our products come from, like where we buy our coffee, where we buy and our clothes, where they come from. Fighting for our politicians to be changing regulations so that these companies have to be having at least basic labor rights for these people who are working in stretch shops and stuff, to bring us stuff for the lowest price possible. And I think we are very much at fault. Our dollars that we're spending are probably, you could argue, more powerful votes than the votes we make for our government system. So take that and think about that. Like, the dollars we're given are given to us to be spent justly. Like, it's not our money. It's never our money. It's from God, and it's what God gives us, and we got to be accountable. We're going to be held accountable for how we spent it and how we spent our time. And yeah, so start thinking about how you're spending your money, thinking about how you can be loving people around you more, and stop worrying about TV shows. Stop worrying, because when you start to engage with people, and especially people in need and suffering people, it's amazing how your own problems that you thought were so big just slowly slide out the window and aren't even a big deal anymore. And you start to realize that the world tries to make ourselves seem like our small problems are bigger than they are, and so that we're constantly having this need to be buying things and filling it with products. And it's so frustrating. Like, you look at Febreze. Like, Febreze is this created product that says, well, your house stinks, everyone's going to come over and think your stuff smells like shit, so you better spray this chemical on it so that it doesn't smell. You look at mouthwash. Gingivitis was a term invented by mouthwash companies because it was making these problems that aren't really there so that you buy something. So we got to be aware of this stuff as Christians, honestly, because that's where our power is, and the world has nothing and we have so much. And ultimately, when we die, we're going to be held accountable for how we used our resources that we were given. So challenge you for that. Start thinking about that. There's lots of cool websites and stuff like that. Check out Oxfam. They got some cool stuff on fair trade products and things like that. But yeah, love you. Go in peace.